Ladies and gentlemen, 8 p.m. We're back on a Wednesday, like I promised. Like I told you, episode 13. Thank you for taking this time out tonight. Those are watching us live. Don't forget the playback is available exclusively in the Entrepreneur Network. So, as promised, I have episode 13 with RASHIA SCHAND, author RASHIA SCHAND, which I'll get into. So, as usual, let me give you my introduction to RASHIA. So, I met her through her husband, Kyle. Kyle, I know you're watching here somewhere. Royalty Removal Solutions. For Royalty Removal Solutions, whenever he needed his updates for his website, I would always talk to RASHIA. So RASHIA was a ghost behind the scenes, but I knew when RASHIA gave me a call, I knew what time it was because RASHIA is about business. So that fast forward, we became partners working with the Bloomfield Junior Warhawks. A Bloomfield program, Pop Warner football program that together, along with our exclusive team, we were able to take from a negative balance to over $100,000 with it. And we continue to do it with that. So through working with the Junior Warhawks, I got a close relationship with RASHIA. Anything about money, me being the position I am, the position she is, we always have a conversations about what should go right with the budget and what should go wrong with the budget. But little did I know, there's a whole background layer to RASHIA, which she'll tell you more about her bio. Most recently, and again, she's coming from a Warhawk program. Most recently, about 2 weeks ago, RASHIA, I believe you had your book signing. So not only does she know money and finance, she's also a best-selling author right here. And I made sure I went to the book signing, got my autographed copy from her. So tonight, she is going to tell you how to purchase a home as a self-employed entrepreneur. Because I know being a self-employed entrepreneur, you might think it's time to buy a house, but you don't know how that works. So many people, like she said in her promo video, are used to the W-2, used to the checks coming in. Every single year, you got your set amount of money that you're making, but she's here to tell you and navigate and show you the correct way through her unique process of what you need to do if you're an entrepreneur to buy your house. So without further ado, RASHIA, thank you for stepping into the Entrepreneur Network. Tonight, again, we have episode 13 live on the Entrepreneur Network. RASHIA, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Quentin, for that great introduction. Like he mentioned, we've been working together for the past several months with the Junior Warhawk gang, and shout out to his wife. He's a very busy man. He does a lot. I feel like this network itself is amazing, and it's something that we need in our community for entrepreneurs. I was able to listen to some of the episodes, not all of them, but definitely caught a lot of great gems. And it's something that we need to support entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship is not for the weak or faint at heart. We don't know it all. A lot of us are first generation business owners, so it can be a lot. So I definitely thank you for going above and beyond for doing this at no cost, right? And investing his time away from his family to make sure that we have all the knowledge and gems that we need to be successful. So like he said, we're going to be talking about how to purchase a home as a self-employed entrepreneur. Before we get into that, I just gotta talk a little bit about my journey and my background. My journey as an entrepreneur has been quite the roller coaster ride. I went to school for business and finance. After graduating, I came back home and I started working in the insurance industry. I was in insurance operations for about 10 years. Halfway through, maybe about 6-7 years, and I knew that I wanted to do something different. I knew that there was something greater outside of the walls of my current employer. I just didn't know what it was or how to begin, how to navigate that that intuition inside of me that said there's something greater than this, right? So I have 4 kids. I'm a wife and mom of 4. So if y'all hear some rumbling, yelling, screaming, that's the kids upstairs. But I started my entrepreneurial journey in like 2016, where I went on a weight loss journey, right? After having my second kid, I stumbled into fitness and I fell in love with it. So after falling in love with fitness, I was like, okay, I could start training people. I started to do it just as a hobby, not even really thinking of it as a business. It was just something that I enjoyed doing. I did it as a hobby. I, did classes in community centers for free. Then I started charging people. Still not really thinking of it as a business. And then finally, still having that urge to want to do something outside of my corporate job. 2020 came and I was like, well, even before then, I actually started a t-shirt line. A lot of people don't know this, right? Because it's non-existent right now, but I think in like 2017, that's how my business launched, I Am Strong Fitness. I started a t-shirt line, and this is when it was popular. T-shirts out there with positive quotes on there for all the gym heads. I started that. It didn't take off like I expected to. And then in 2020, I was still training, and I was like, you know what? Let me take this full time. So I decided to leave my corporate job and do training full time. And of course, COVID hit, which shifted my whole plans. I was pregnant with my fourth child, and I just had to pivot, right? I had to pause my ambitions, my goals. I was even looking at gym facilities to open up an actual gym, and everything shifted once COVID hit. I was still training. I ended up doing a lot of virtual classes for mothers. I was home with 4 children, forced to homeschool, 3 kids with a newborn, and I'm still today a stay-at-home mom. My husband, as Quentin mentioned, he owns his own business. It's our business. So of course I'm doing a lot of back end stuff for that. And about a year ago, last year, I knew that I wouldn't be home forever. I knew that at some point that I had to figure out what is life going to be like once my daughter, who's going to be going to school this fall, what I need to be doing. So that's how I stumbled into the mortgage world. So I am currently a mortgage loan officer with Right Track Financial. We are headquartered in Manchester, Connecticut. I started my journey there in July of last year. I also started writing my book, and my book was officially published this April. For everyone out there, if you know a teenager graduating this year, whether they're in college, they're going to college, or they're actually graduating from college, make sure you look up Jumpstart Your Money Journey. It is the perfect financial literacy book for teens and young adults to help them jumpstart their money journey and teach them pretty much everything that we didn't learn growing up. You can get it on Amazon.com. Again, it's Jumpstart Your Money Journey. So here I am today in the mortgage world. I consider myself a mompreneur, right? Because I'm still home with my youngest, balancing, juggling, being an entrepreneur and a stay-at-home mom. So it can get real at times, but I love it. I know once the fall comes, it's going to be different for me because I'll have more time to dedicate towards that world. But enough about me. We're here to talk about how you can purchase a home as a self-employed entrepreneur. Before I keep going on, just in the chat, if you are an aspiring homeowner, type yes in the chat real quick. Type yes. Or do y'all already own your homes? Everybody on here own their homes? Don't be shy. If you are an aspiring homeowner, type yes in the chat. All right, somebody said, yeah, okay, there's a couple yeses. All right. So this is going to be great for you all. Not too long ago, one of my favorite quotes is, home ownership should be a right, not a privilege. When you look at the history of, just the mortgage world, home ownership, it has been crazy. It wasn't not too long ago where Black and brown people could actually purchase a home. And then when it was actually legally possible for them to purchase a home, obviously a lot of discriminatory practices existed. I'm talking about the 1950s all the way up to recent, right? Yes, things have gotten better. They are getting better. But as Black and brown people, there were a lot of discriminatory practices that prevented or hindered us from owning a home. But there is hope. Things have changed. There's so many different loan programs out there to help first-time home buyers own a home, as well as entrepreneurs own a home. We're getting rid of the traditional methods, right? Everybody knows the traditional way that you can buy a home, but now there's a lot of alternative ways as well. So I'm going to get into that too. So before we get into just the actual process, I want to say that the steps to buying a home really starts with your mindset, right? I always say that in order to go where you've never been, you have to do something you've never done. I meet with clients all the time who have goals of wanting to own a home. And sometimes that goal is literally within reach. You got to do X, Y, Z, and then 6 months to a year, you can, get your credit right, do this, and you'll be able to get pre-approved to buy a home. But some people aren't willing to do the work, right? You can only accomplish your goals if you're willing to do the work and you shift your mindset, right? Your goals are not going to accomplish themselves. So you have to be willing to put in the work. Now, when you're ready and you made up in your mind that owning a home is your goal, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to focus your efforts on, the first thing that you need to do is connect with a loan officer. A lot of people go directly to realtors, and that's fine, but you cannot search for a home or start the home search process without first getting pre-approved, pre-qualified. And that pre-approval and pre-qualified process is where your loan officer will come in, look at your financials, give you a breakdown, run your credit, request certain documents to see, how much you will qualify. And if not, what are some of the things that you need to do in order to get ready, right? So I am a mortgage loan officer, and I always tell people there's 4 numbers that you should focus on when you're trying to buy a home. Even before you even come to the mortgage loan officer, you should have an idea of where you stand with these 4 numbers. One is your credit. Credit is, just from my experience, some people may have other experience, credit is the #1 reason that's hindering people from home ownership, right? So you want to take a look at your credit to see what it is that you need to do to be able to qualify. And I can't tell you that there's a magic number because there's so many different loan programs out there. You could get a mortgage with a 580 credit score. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but you can get one with a 580 credit score. Some loan programs require 660. So the key is to just take a look at your credit, see where you stand, so you'll have an idea of what you may need to work on. Another thing that mortgage loan officers look at is your income. It's your monthly gross income. And again, we'll get into this for self-employed individuals. What is your monthly gross income? That's going to help us determine how much you'll qualify for. Then we look at your DTI, which is your debt to income ratio. And that's really looking at all of your debt on your credit, not, your bills, expenses, utilities, just simply the debt on your credit report, which could be a car loan, a credit card, all of those debt, student loans, all of those debts added up and divided by your gross monthly income. That'll give us your debt to income ratio. There are programs that are a lot more strict than, programs like the FHA program, right? With the conventional loan program, their DTI is like around 43%, but programs like FHA, which makes it possible for the folks who didn't or couldn't qualify for a mortgage, be able to qualify in today's world. You can go up to 56% debt to income ratio. So again, things are changing and homeownership is becoming more and more attainable for individuals. The next thing you want to do is know your assets. What are you bringing to the table, if anything, to cover your down payment and closing costs? So those are the 4 things y'all want to look at when you're considering buying a home: your credit, your income, your debts, what debts you have, and then your assets. So pop quiz real quick. So now we're going to get into focusing on self-employed and really just looking on that income aspect out of the 4 things that I just mentioned. So I want to do a quick pop quiz, and you guys can just type true or false in the chat. So if you are self-employed, you must have a registered business for at least 2 years before you can apply for a mortgage. Is that true or false? I got some trues. I got some. Okay, so y'all kind of 50. Well, okay, it's more trues. So it's a trick question. So the answer is false. The reason why it's false, and I see some people on here that are in the game. The two key words to focus on in that question is self-employed and registered business. So just because you're self-employed does not mean you own a business. Think of the sole proprietors, independent contractor, gig workers, all the hustlers out there. I know some hustlers on here. You don't necessarily have a legal business entity set up for yourself. You know, think of a construction worker, or someone who does DoorDash and Uber Eats, Uber drivers, stuff like that, right? So just because you're self-employed does not mean you legally have a business entity set up like an LLC or S corporation. So the answer to that question is false. No, you do not have to have a registered business for at least 2 years. What you do need, though, is 2 years of tax returns. So registering your business means nothing if you have not filed your taxes. And I can attest to this. I'm sure it's people out there that can attest to this. When I filed my business, or when I created my business in 2016, everybody shouting, oh, go file an LLC, not realizing once you file that legal business entity, now you're liable for taxes. I didn't know that. So I was out here just running the business, doing what I wanted to do, not filing. I mean, I didn't really make that much money, but still not filing taxes. So my business was registered in 2016, but I hadn't filed taxes for several years. So that is number one. When you start your business and you want to get a mortgage, you have to go legit. You can't be out here doing whatever and expect to get a mortgage or even business funding. You have to have your ducks in a row. All right. Now, don't get on here asking me any tax related questions because that's not my lane. Okay, I see a tax expert on here. I'll leave that to her, Tamara Brown. Tamara knows taxes. Make sure y'all hit her up. She is another entrepreneur. Leave that to her. But the whole point is, make sure you have your ducks in a row. You cannot get funding without having proper documentation. So when it comes to buying a home off as a self-employed person, off the rip, being self-employed is seen as riskier, right? When you are a W-2 employee, lenders know you're getting that paycheck, right? They can easily pull up a W-2. They can easily pull your pay stubs. Honestly, sometimes I wish I was still a W-2 employee. I miss getting that check on the 1st and the 15th, okay? But again, no regrets. I'm happy here, even though it can get real sometimes, being an entrepreneur. The whole point is, as an entrepreneur, your income is not always consistent. And that's why lenders want to see 2 years of history, right? You could be booming in December because it's the holidays, and then the next month you're not making no money, right? So they want to see 2 years of history so they can take the average of that to determine what you will qualify for. So there's 3 approaches that you can take when it comes to buying a home. The first approach is the traditional approach. This means that you're going through a lender and you're getting a traditional loan, a conventional loan, FHA loan, USDA loan for homes in rural areas, a VA loan for veterans, all of that stuff that you would go through a mortgage broker or lender to get. And we call those full doc loans, right? Because we're looking at everything to qualify you. So outside of having the credit needed, having assets for the down payment and closing costs, you must provide 2 years of tax returns, right? So when you go to your loan officer, you go to myself or someone else, the first thing, and you say you're self-employed, the first thing they're gonna say is, do you have tax returns? If you don't, they may say, all right, go on your merry way, come back when you got them. I won't do that. I always try to help my clients strategize and find the best solution. But again, that's the first thing that they are going to ask is, let me see your tax returns. What are we actually looking for? So we're looking for your adjusted gross income. So unlike a W-2 employee where you are getting a paycheck every week, bi-weekly, or however the frequency is, you can easily look at that pay stub and say, okay, this individual, they work X amount of hours, they're getting X amount of pay per pay period, and you can calculate what their gross monthly income is. You can't do that with a self-employed individual. So what we're looking at is your adjusted gross income. Now, here's where the problem lies a lot of times when it comes to entrepreneurs. And it's not a problem because this is how the system was set up, right? There's tax code out there. It's been set up to help entrepreneurs legally reduce their taxable income and run a successful, profitable business. Hey, they said the prior president didn't pay taxes. Whether he did it legally or not, I'm not here to discuss that, but there are incentives to owning a business, right? So a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we want to reduce our taxable liability. And let me just make it make sense real quick, right? You are a landscaper and you grossed, let's say $200,000 or $300,000 a year. You wrote off a bunch of expenses. You took a bunch of deductions for year one. Now, at the end of the year, once you file your tax returns, your adjusted gross income is about 50K, right? Year two, so that was year one. We need 2 years. Year two, same thing. Your business is growing. Now you're grossing a little bit over 300K. Now you have employees. You got some new equipment, a new truck, and you wrote a bunch of stuff off. You brought a bunch of equipment. You wrote it off. You wrote off all the expenses that comes with having employees. And now your adjusted gross income is 24,000, right? So those are the numbers that lenders are looking at for self-employed individuals. And again, that's not just, I'm just using the example of a landscaper, but even an Uber driver, right? You're writing off mileage, maintenance, all of that stuff, right? So for the landscaper example, you grossed 50, your adjusted gross income in year one was 50, second year was 35, let's just say 35. What we're going to do is divide that by 24 months, and that's going to give us your monthly income that we're going to qualify you off of. Now, with that specific example, now you're being qualified off of $3,500 a month. So now that $350,000, $400,000 house that you can probably realistically afford is reduced to $200,000 because of all of the expenses and deductions that you took. Now, that's not exact math. I'm just using it as a hypothetical example. But hopefully y'all get the point, right? When you are self-employed, we're looking at your adjusted gross income. So if you take all of those deductions, that's what you're going to be qualified off of. So if home ownership is a goal, you have to keep that in mind. Maybe you have to suck it up for the next 2 years and not write off as many expenses, right? I can't tell you what the magic number is on where you should be. We went through this very similar example last year when we were actually looking for a home. Excuse me. And I was like, well, shoot, how much should I actually show on my tax return? But it really depends on how much of a house you're looking for. It depends on your debt. So that's something that if you're interested in strategizing more about, you can reach out to me one-on-one. I'll provide my contact information. All right. So before I go on, I said a lot. Any questions before I keep talking?
Anyone can say anything?
Another key thing is, as a business owner, when it comes to getting approved, lenders want to see that you have been in the same industry for at least 2 years. And that's across the board. That's even for W-2 employees. You have to show 2 years of consistent job history. That doesn't mean you have to be at the same job for 2 years, but you have to show that, well, when you apply, you haven't had to be at that particular job for 2 years, but you've had to have 2 years of history at some other point. Same thing with self-employed borrowers. Lenders want to see that you are in the same industry for 2 years. Not one day you're a hairdresser, the next day you doing something totally different, selling sneakers or whatever. So 2 years in the same business, right? Those 2 years of tax returns should not be two totally different business. It should be the same business. And that's just, again, across the board, because lenders want to see that there's some stability in your income. All right. So like I said, this is the traditional method. If you want to get a mortgage, a traditional way, you have to provide 2 years of tax returns. And again, you may have to suck it up temporarily, keeping your eye on the prize, knowing that home ownership is your goal. And you're going to have to probably pay more in taxes for those 2 specific years. You got to keep your eye on the prize. What is your ultimate goal? All right. So that is the traditional approach. There are there's always ways around it. There's always ways around the system, right? So the second approach is a bank statement loan. And this is something that's newer on the scene that a lot of people are taking advantage of. It's called, and I won't get too much into the technical terminology, but it's a non-traditional, non-QM, meaning it's not a qualified mortgage. The old terminology used to be subprime. Everybody know that term. They're pretty much riskier loans. So think of the 2008 housing market crash, when prior to that, everybody was able to get loans. There was nothing really put in place, or strict regulations put in place to actually make sure that these individuals were truly qualified to own a home. Then boom, the housing market crash hit, right? So this was called subprime lending. Now we call it non-qualified mortgage. It's a riskier loan to help people who don't fit in this box, right? Sometimes we don't fit that box. So people who don't fit in that box, help them still get a loan in a legal, ethical way. It's not predatory lending. It's not subprime lending. It's really just an alternative to the traditional methods. So pretty much with the bank statement loan, instead of qualifying you off of 2 years of tax returns, pretty much they're looking at 2 years of, or 12 to 24 months of bank deposits, right? So if you have your ducks in a row, you're depositing the funds that you're earning, whether you don't have to be a business owner, you can be a gig worker, contractor, you're making your deposits. And they'll look at 12 months of deposits and determine what your monthly income is. Now, if let's just say, for example, if your deposits came out to 200K for the past 12 months, now you're qualifying off a much higher amount, rather than taking that 200K and taking all of your deductions, writing off all of those expenses, right? So they'll take a percentage of that. Now you're qualifying off of over $10,000, right? So in order for this type of loan to work, you have to be organized. You have to make sure you're keeping your business expenses separate from your personal expenses. If you own a business, or again, if you're a gig worker, making sure you're making consistent deposits. The consistency is key, consistent deposits. Also, another thing to keep in mind with the bank statement loans is don't have a bunch of accounts, right? As a business owner, and we personally do have separate accounts set up for different reasons. You don't want to have 5 different deposit accounts. You want to make sure all of your deposits are going into one account. And that is the bank statement that you will send to the lender, that one deposit account. Now, some lenders even will take a P&L that's prepared by an accountant. So instead of your bank statements, they will take a profit and loss statement that has been signed off by an accountant. Another key with that is your business, and this is for business owners specifically, your business has to be in good standing. You can't owe taxes. You can't not have filed your annual filings. Like, all of that has to be in place before you could apply for this type of loan. All right. Any questions with the bank statement loans? Now, if you're a independent contractor, you can also use a 1099 instead of the bank statements. That's in your personal name. So you could take all of your 1099s. You've been hired for multiple jobs, take all of those and add those up, and lenders will take that and determine your monthly income. The cons with this type of loan is higher down payment. You're not, is interest higher? Yep. So I was just about to get to that. So someone asked, is interest higher? Is interest rates higher with bank statement loans? Yes, they are. Again, this is the non-traditional route, right? So and they're riskier loans because again, you're only looking at bank statements, right? So with that being said, it's a much higher risk to lender, so they're going to charge you more. Not only is the interest rates higher, the down payment is higher. So you're not qualifying for a 5%, 3.5% down loan. You have to put down 10 to 20% down for these type of loans, right? So you have to have that huge down payment. Again, the upside is you can always refinance and get a lower rate at a later date. And that's something that you want to do because you don't want to be paying that 9% interest on this mortgage for over 3 years, right? So after 12 months, you can definitely refinance, work on getting your, your finances in order, your business taxes in order, so that you can refinance out of that loan for a lower and better rate. All right. And I'm almost done. I definitely want to open it up for other questions, but the third approach to getting a home as a self-employed individual is a DSR loan. And this one is a little different, right? This is a unconventional solution, right? So the debt service ratio loan is known as an investor loan. It's for individuals who want to purchase a multifamily. If you want to purchase a 2-family, 3-family, I think it's up to 4 units. Some lenders even do up to 6 units. So with this DSR loan, you are qualified off of the cash flow of the property. So not your income at all. You're qualified off of the cash flow of that particular property. So if you are looking to buy a 3-family and that 3-family is bringing in, let's just say, $4,000 in rental income, the mortgage is $3,200, that property qualifies. So the key with this one is as long as the market rent for that property covers the mortgage, then you'll be approved, obviously, with credit and all that stuff. So I'm a huge fan of taking this approach only because if you're a first-time home buyer, I think it's wise to own an investment property so that the rents that you obtain from that investment property could eventually be used to help fund your dream home that you want to buy. I currently own a 2-family. We're currently in the process of looking for another multifamily. We went back and forth. Last year we was looking for a house. Now we're like, nope, we want another multifamily so that these multifamilies can fund and pay for our mortgage when we do eventually get our house, right? So that is another, again, unconventional approach to getting your first home. Consider getting a multifamily and using this loan. Now, the downside to this is you definitely have to put up a hefty down payment. You're looking at a minimum of 20%. In some cases, if you have excellent credit, you can put down 15%, but usually it's between 20 to 25% down. That's a lot. Think about a $350,000 property. You're looking at about $70,000. All right. And again, with this loan as well, interest rates are going to be a lot higher because it is a riskier loan. All right, so that is what I had for you guys. I hope it was helpful. I know it was a lot of information. I didn't really get into a lot of detail because a lot of this is going to be specific to individuals. If you really want to sit down and figure out if you'll qualify, what approach is best for you, make sure you reach out to me. I will put my information in the chat so you guys can have my email as well as my contact information. And we can go from there.
All right, perfect. Thank you, thank you. So I got a couple questions, some in the chat, some in the other chat that I have over here. So what will be the first steps that people would have to do working with you? Would they just call you? What's the best route?
Yes, so the best approach is to call me. I'm putting my number in the chat right now and my email. Call me or send me an email. We can set up a call, have a quick consultation, and go from there.
Okay, and then the next question, you mentioned that we need to have all the tax information right. Would you recommend getting with an accountant to do this, or should it be old school spreadsheet, that type of thing? What do you think? What's best?
So what's the question again?
So with the best steps, should me or any other entrepreneur, should they get an accountant to make sure everything is right with their finances, or would they be okay coming to you with their own personal profit and loss statement? Would you prefer a professional one? What works best when they got to present things?
So when it comes, like if for the initial consultation, they can, we can talk about what they have on hand. But when it comes to actually applying for a loan, you definitely need the proper documentation. Like I said, your tax returns or a profit and loss statement signed off by an actual accountant.
So we do need an accountant. All right.
Yes, and if you don't have one on hand, you need to get one ASAP.
I strongly recommend. We have some accountants in the chat.
Yes.
Yeah, some accountants in the chat, or an accountant or a CPA.
Mm-hmm.
That was from the chat. My next question for you. So what do you think is the biggest challenge that you have with most clients coming in as the first time as an entrepreneur trying to get a house? What's one of the biggest challenges you think that they may run into?
So honestly, I haven't had a lot of people who, came to me with issues related to it. But I would say overall, I think a lot of people shy away from even asking because they're new business owners and they're like, okay, I know I just started this business venture. I don't know if I'm going to qualify. They hear that 2 years rule, but they don't know the other methods out there. So I think a lot of it is not having the proper information, but I would always suggest just reach out and ask. So I love what I do because so many people are shocked at what I tell them. When I tell them, oh, you will qualify, you just got to do this one thing. And they're like, really? So always ask the question.
Now, do you specialize with credit? Because I know you mentioned about credit, and what was the minimum credit score that they needed?
Right. So depending on the type of program that you're going after and the method that you're going to take is going to vary. But you want to have at least a 640. When it comes to self-employed, a lot of those programs, the credit score ranges from 640 to 660. It's not like the traditional, if you want to get an FHA. Even with an FHA, I still recommend that you stay in that 640 range because you're going to pay, you have to put if your score is lower than that, you're going to be putting down a much higher down payment. So in general, the higher the credit score, the better.
Now, just piggybacking on that question, my next question is, do you work with, so let's say you have a particular entrepreneur that comes to you with a low credit score. Do you work with them to help them increase their credit score? Are you able to point them in a direction? How does that work?
Yes. So with all of my clients that reach out to me, I always give them an action plan. If they're ready and they want me to run their credit, I run their credit, I review their credit profile, and I'll give them an action plan on what they need to do in order to qualify.
Perfect. And then we have a question from the chat. It says, do you need a mortgage officers for seller financing? Or do you need a mortgage officer for seller financing? It's in the chat.
Do you need a mortgage officer? I don't understand that question. Can you explain that a little further?
You can unmute yourself if it's easier, so you don't have to type everything. Let's see, I think he's started typing in there. Any other questions anybody else want to put in the chat?
I don't have a question. but I would like to throw a little bit of advice to everybody here. Um, I bought my house 7 years ago, today to be exact. And when we went to buy our house, we had an inspector, the lady, the realtor, and the lawyer. My advice to everybody is to get your own inspector, your own lawyer, and find somebody, or if you can, do everything yourself. The reason why I say that is because the inspector we had cost us $3,700 because he did not do a proper inspection. So my advice to everybody is when you go to look for a house, to definitely find somebody. If you have to look on the BBA website or whatever, find somebody that you can really connect with that can help you. The guy charged me $600 for an inspection, but what he didn't do is he did not check the breaker and tell me the breaker had to be upgraded from a 100 to a 200. And when we went to put the pool in, I had to upgrade my whole entire electrical system, which cost me $3,700. Now, if I would have known that before I bought the house, I would have had the people fix the problem instead of me coming out of pocket to upgrade my electrical system. This is just a little advice to everybody here. I hope it helps.
Really appreciate it.
Rashia, this is Hayward from the BBA, and it's nice seeing you tonight.
Hello, nice hearing from you.
It's been a while.
All right, thank you for the tip, Hayward. Any other questions, comments? Anyone want to chime in?
It looks like someone said, were you doing as self-employed? Tamara, what question are you asking? Oh, were you talking to Hayward?
That's probably what it was. It's probably the Hayward.
Okay.
Okay, yes, it was Hayward. All right, Hayward, answer that one in the chat for her, for that one. Any other questions from anybody else? Just leave it in the chat. But it's 8 o'clock. It's our 8 o'clock session. So this is one of our later night. So again, Rashea, thank you for coming in. Tell them where they could find you information, and then I'll show them the perfect place to find you.
Okay. So wait, find me how? I put my number in the chat, and then my email. I already got a text message from someone already who wants to do a consultation. So let's get it.
Perfect. So again, if you join this late, Rashea, not only is she a mortgage officer, I also have her book, Jumpstart Your Money Journey, available on Amazon and other places that you can find it. Let me show them real quick. Let me share my screen. So for those that are brand new, I see a lot of brand new faces in here tonight. Thank you for spending your Wednesday night with us. Let me share my screen so everybody can see it. So if you are not a member of the Entrepreneur yet, not network yet, take a look here. So if you go to the website, www.nothingbutwebllc.com, you come over to the network and go to network members. If you have any other follow-up questions other than text, so you scroll down, you see Rashea. Everybody in the network has their own profile or in the process of working. Tamara's in here too. We have Diane McDougall, she's in here, Kaj Detail. So as you can see, our network is continuing to grow, all different types of entrepreneurs that are in here. So you have the ability, you could send Rashea a direct message if you want to. If you want to do a breakout session, you're able to do that in here as well. And for those of you that came in late, if you want to go back and watch this entire episode, it'll be loaded up tomorrow, along with the other episodes that we have in the network. Any questions before we wrap for today or for tonight? I see some things in the chat. Oh, we just got great info. All right. So with that being said, Rashea, thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is episode 13. RASHIA, thank you for explaining to everyone how to purchase a home as a self-employed entrepreneur. I hope everyone got valuable information. And join us next Wednesday. We have another event next Wednesday. We're starting to do these things back to back, keeping it on Wednesday. But again, RASHIA, thank you. Thank you for everyone for spending your time, 8 p.m. And with that being said, everyone have a great night. I'm going to stop recording.
Bye. Thank you all.